I look back at my time at Clemson University with great fondness, and one of the things that I really take great pride in is the Air Force ROTC program that was there. I joined that right when I arrived, and very early on I heard about this thing called Arnold Air Society. I never heard of it before when I was in high school. I had a friend that was going to pledge. I saw some of the leadership of ROTC that appeared to me that they were all coming from Arnold Air Society. So I thought it indicates to where there was a really great program. So I jumped in with both feet. I'll tell you, I'm glad I did. It provided me a lot of great leadership opportunities very early on while I was in ROTC, and gave me opportunities to practice that leadership before becoming a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. So things like little things like fundraisers, planning that. We ran a game football from Clemson to the University of South Carolina every year. Planning the logistics of that, planning the public affairs part of that. We talked on radio stations. It was just a great opportunity to practice those skills before you actually really needed it when I got commissioned as second lieutenant. Yeah, well, first of all, I would start before becoming a second lieutenant, and I would say, don't ever pass up an opportunity to lead. And so when you're in ROTC, when you're in Arnold Air Society or Silver Wings, I would really encourage you to jump at every chance you can to have those leadership opportunities, to develop some skills, because we're always learning. Having served 38 and a half years, I still learn every single day. And so I would encourage you to start before you become a second lieutenant to hone your leadership philosophy. When you become a second lieutenant, I think the biggest thing that you're going to do at first is become an expert at your job. No matter what you do, whether you're an ICBM officer, a space officer, a pilot, a communicator, an intel engineer, it doesn't matter. Your job is to be the best at that. And so I would encourage all the folks that are listening, all the Arnold Air Society cadets and ROTC cadets, that when you get commissioned, go in and become an expert. That's job number one. And people, your peers will recognize that hard work. They'll recognize your expertise. Your bosses will recognize how hard you're working and the expertise that you have, and the folks that you're privileged to lead will also recognize that. So I would say, first thing is, very few second lieutenants go in and command. You go in to an organization and be the best at whatever you're tapped to be. Yeah, the biggest thing, I think, the biggest mistake I see young leaders make is they confuse leadership with likership. All leaders want to be liked, but that's not the measure of merit for success. And lots of young leaders go in wanting to make everybody happy and be universally liked, and not make some really tough decisions that leaders have to make. You can't be universally hated. You got to be respected is the right thing. So I would say, realize that in a leadership job, you might have to send somebody into battle where they'll lose their life. This is not just about being liked. This is about having the respect, making the tough calls, and I would encourage you to think about leadership, not leadership. When you join and get commissioned, you'll have opportunities when you go to your first base to be part of the Company Grade Officers Council, for example. There's professional development opportunities that organizations put on as well. I would immerse yourself into every opportunity you get to continue that professional development that you've begun at ROTC and Arnold Air Society and Silver Wings. Try to seek out every opportunity you can to be able to do that. And then I would also encourage folks to find a mentor. Find somebody that you can talk to and get their advice. Find somebody that you look up to and say, boy, that person has their act together, and see how they do it. And so immerse yourself in professional development opportunities. There's organizations out there that can help you do that, and then find a mentor or two that can help you. Yeah, I was really lucky. I had several mentors throughout my 38 and a half years career. The very first mentor I had, or a leader that I really looked up to, I said, boy, I'd like to kind of be like that. There's a guy named Seb Cognitor, General Seb Cognitor. He was my wing commander at Vandenberg, and he had incredible interpersonal skills. He was polite and nice, but a true expert in his business, and that balance of being skilled technically and an expert at your job, but also being able to be folks relate to them is something that I always want to have. I would say the next example I would use is General Don Cook, who was masterful at working people. He was obviously an expert at what he did, but he was really skilled at managing people and leading people and building teams and getting the right people in the right jobs. So I kind of learned that from him. And then the last one, which is a general that I worked for probably 9 times throughout my career, is a gentleman named General Bob Kaler, who was an Air Force Base Command commander, became the STRATCOM commander. He is an incredible strategic thinker. He gets a lot of stuff done, but he's really level-headed and calm, cool, and collected, and didn't get too up or down. And I just thought that he was a model officer that I would like to emulate. And if you were to tell me who I modeled most of my senior leadership philosophy off of, it was General Kaler, because I just worked for him for so long. Yeah, that's one of the things that I loved about the military. I never had that challenge because I was always being moved to another position. Anytime that I felt like I was getting comfortable, I got a new job, and to continue to grow and develop. I think early on, the first couple of jobs I had, I was there for 4 years in the first 2 jobs, which allowed me to get the depth that I needed as an operator of a weapon system. But after that, the military has a way of knowing when it's time to move you and to continue to grow. And I would encourage people to embrace that, to really embrace it. And people always ask me, how do you become a 4-star? I said, well, the way you become a 4-star is don't think about becoming a 4-star. You just think about being the best second lieutenant you can be. Think about being the best first lieutenant you can be. Wherever you're planted, be the best at that. And then you're going to get opportunities to progress, and you might grow up to be a chief of a service. But I wouldn't focus on that as much as really focusing on getting the opportunities to develop yourself and taking advantage of every single bit of that to grow, because we're going to need to grow you for big jobs, big important jobs ahead. I think leader has to emphasize all of them, but I would suggest core values. I was in the Air Force before we had core values, and I was probably a young captain when core values came into the Air Force: service, excellence, and integrity. When we set up the Space Force, we actually established new core values because we thought it was really important for guardians to understand what it meant to be a guardian and what are those values that we all hold dear. And so I would say kind of an entry point thing is you got to embrace the core values, you got to live those core values to be successful in any organization that you're in. So I would say I'd probably start with that. And then mission is what you're paid to do. And I think one of the key things that a leader has to do is make sure that every single person in their organization has a tie to that mission. When you go into a unit, you need to understand how your job directly aligns to that mission. I remember I was a wing commander in Colorado Springs. I was doing a wing commander's call. Must have had 600 people in the auditorium, and a young airman from the Security Forces Squadron stood up and said, "Sir, how I just laid out the new mission statement for the wing," and he said, how do I contribute to that mission statement? And it was a great question. And so I said, hey, at the end of this meeting, you're going to get my staff card with me. You're going to drive over to my office, and we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. And I think it's really important for every person in an organization to have that time. Vision is where you're headed, and I think it's important to have that vision, so you have an aim point to keep moving at. But I would say core values is the entry point. Mission is what you do each and every day, and it's critical that you have that link to that. And then it's also critical to understand where you're headed. You do it in one-on-one discussions like we're having. You do it with strategic documents that you put out that says, here's kind of the strategic plan for the wing, or the squadron, or whatever you're part of. Here's the mission. Here's the objectives. Here's the goals. Here's what I expect. You'll find, especially when you're leading a large organization, you have to keep reiterating them over and over and over again. You can never over communicate like that. And then as you, again, depending on what level of command you're at, or where you are in your career, you have to seek out opportunities to be able to make sure that you can continue to communicate those in multiple ways. And then you also have to get folks that are allies for you and have them help communicate it. You can never over communicate your mission. I commanded a wing that was spread out all over the globe. I had units in Europe, Antarctica, I'm sorry, not Antarctica, the Arctic, at Greenland, and out into the Pacific Ocean, and everywhere in between. And I would spend like 3 weeks at home at Peterson, and then I'd go visit a unit. And in those units, I could really get a sense for how my communication was either working or not working, because does the squadron at Thule, Greenland, miles and miles north of the Arctic Circle, do they understand what the mission is and the vision and the goals? And it became really clear to litmus test on how well we're doing. But you got to communicate in multiple ways, and you can never over communicate. I think I've never put it that way for me. I haven't said, what is my mission statement, if you will. I always knew I wanted to serve, and for me it was all about service. And then once I got in and had the opportunity to serve, I wanted to continue to contribute to our nation. And so for me it was all about service, and that's kind of what I went back to. Why did I stay in 38 and a half years? Because I wanted to serve. And I wanted to serve with an incredible team of people. I have sensed, since I've been out of the service, that the thing that I miss most is the people and the camaraderie. It's belonging to something bigger than ourselves. It's being part of a team, and I miss that. I come to work every day focused on that. I mean, the reason why I stayed in as long as I did is I wanted to make a difference for the young airmen and guardians that I work with. I think if you were to ask people about General Raymond, they would say he connected really well, especially with young airmen and guardians. I worked hard at that. Obviously, we're different generations. You have different interests than interests I have, but I wanted to make sure that your voice was heard. And so everywhere I went, when I went on a unit visit, I would always go make sure I spent time with the guardians. I didn't want to sit in conference rooms to get briefings. I wanted to go visit them in their workplaces. I wanted to see where they're working, and then I wanted them to raise concerns to me, and then I wanted to fix them. And if I could deliver for them, then you start building the trust. I also tried to connect with their families. A lot of times, I would go visit a unit, and a young airman would meet me, and he or she did a great job talking about what they did, or showing me their dorm room, or showing me their work environment. I said, can I talk to your parents? And they'd pull out a cell phone, they'd call their mom, and I'd say, hey, I'm here with John. He's doing a spectacular job. And just making connections is important, and I try to do it every opportunity I could. Yeah, I think it's very important, but you also have to realize you're gonna, when you get put into jobs, you're gonna inherit a team. So you have to go in, assess the team that you have, build on their strengths and address their weaknesses, and then you have an opportunity at certain levels. You'll have an opportunity to hire people, but you know, for most of your career, until you get to the really senior leadership levels, you're gonna inherit a team, and then somebody's gonna assign people to you, and your job is going to be to mold that team and make it a team that works well for you. Absolutely. You don't want to foster an environment where people aren't afraid to tell you bad information or something's wrong. If all you did was have people say, oh yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, that's not what you want. Now you also don't want somebody that's a complete negative, that everything that you do, sir, we can't do that, or we can't do this, or we can't do this. There's kind of a happy medium. You want somebody that is not afraid and feels empowered to speak up and give their opinion. But when it comes time for a decision to be made, once the decision is made, you want somebody that can execute and deliver what you need. So there's a balance. But yes, you want people that aren't afraid to give you bad news, aren't afraid to give you another opinion. That's why we're really working hard on having diverse teams, to make sure that multiple voices can be heard, and then you get a better answer. So my day-to-day life has changed significantly. I mean, I'm obviously no longer a chief of a service. I'm retired, but I have some opportunities, like you said, where I'm working in commercial industry, either on boards of companies or actually for a private equity company. And for me, the opportunities that I took, that I said yes to, were things that I really wanted to do, that also allowed me to help in my current roles, to be supportive and help the service that I came from. And so in all those jobs that I've taken, the multiple roles, I've focused on being able to get back to our nation's security and still maintain a linkage with where I grew up. I'm part of I lead what's called the Board of Trustees. We've got a number of trustees that really care deeply about Arnold Air Society and Civil Wings. A lot of them have had previous Arnold Air Society or Civil Wings experience. We work really hard to make sure that you have the resources available that you need. We work really hard to make sure that on, like for example, national conventions, that we get the right speakers in and the right professional development opportunities. We work really hard to make sure that we can lend our voices to helping make some policy changes for the betterment of ROTC. And so you can think of us as your big support network, if you will, that helps Arnold Air Society thrive and do what it needs to do for our nation. I think reading is absolutely important. You know, the hard part is finding the time to. You can get so busy that you can forget about picking up a book and reading. What I have learned is when you read books, you can learn from others. You know, they've gone through similar things that you can pull out some gold nuggets from and apply to your day-to-day. So you're missing a huge opportunity to learn lessons from others and capitalize on that. I think the book for young officers, and my son is not in the military, but I told him to read it as a young leader, is just leadership books. The one that I remembered back when I was young reading was John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and I just gave that to my son and said, I read that. For me, it was a kind of a foundational leadership book that I read and that I took notes on and learned something from. Thank you, and thank you for everybody watching. Thanks for serving. And thanks for being open to the possibility of coming into our Air and Space Forces and becoming a leader. Our nation needs you. We're in really, really, really complex strategic times. We need great leaders, and I'm really proud to be associated with Arnold Air Center. So thanks, and thanks for today.